Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Katrina Johnson Show. I am so grateful to have you with me. You'll have to bear with me today. I'm just experiencing some allergies, a little bit of stuffiness, and scratchiness in the throat. So hopefully I can get through this. Today, I want to share with you a clip by John Wooden. The name of this episode is What is Success? And I couldn't think of anyone greater to break down what success is than this gentleman. John Wooden, if you're not familiar with him, was, or should I say, is the greatest basketball coaches of all times. He led the UCLA Bruins to consecutive wins back to back, and I believe, if I'm correct, 10 championships back to back. He explains his pyramid of success and two of the things, or what he calls the blocks to success. He will speak about one in particular today, which is hard work, and the other one is enthusiasm, but we're going to just deal with the hard work aspect of it today. And just to share something with you, I truly believe that hard work is necessary. Hard work is necessary. I could give you an example of when I was promoted to a human resource administrator position on my job. I didn't know one thing about human resources. No background in that position at all. But I dedicated myself to learning, and I did have a mentor, a very good mentor, but I had to really just do whatever I could to make sure I was going to be successful in the position. And that meant working hard, staying after, working overtime, working weekends. When no one else was in the office, I was there. I was learning everything from scratch, and I did not want to disappoint my boss, and I truly wanted to learn my position. So I took it seriously by putting in the work and working overtime. So I hope you enjoy this clip by John Wooden. He, again, is the example of success because of what he did in the field of basketball as a coach. Here's John Wooden.
Endeavor. We all want success. And you're successful people, and that's fine, and you should want success. We all should, but what is success? I wonder if we'd all agree. Mr. Webster tells us that it's the accumulation of material possessions or the attainment of a position of power or prestige or something along those lines, worthy accomplishments, but in my mind, not necessarily indicative of success. So I wanted to come up with a definition of my own, and I started working on this in the mid-30s, and I finally coined my own definition of success. I think it's a result of three things. First of all, my dad. I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana, three brothers, and Dad, one of the things he tried to get across is never try to be better than someone else. Now, if he stopped there, I don't think it would be very meaningful, but he didn't stop there. He said, learn from others. That's the way we learn from others. And never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's within your power. And how good somebody else is going to be is not within your power. And if you get yourself too engrossed in things over which you have no control, it will adversely affect the things over which you have control. I don't think that registered with me at the time, but later on I thought back, and I know it did. And then I had a high school professor that had the class define success one time, and we used very similar to what Mr. Webster did, and I remember the discussions on that. And then I ran across a very simple verse that said, and I love poetry, my master's thesis on it. The verse said, at God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed, he cried. The master said, thou didst thy best. That is success. So from those three things, I think I came up with my own definition. I defined success in 1934 as peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. None of us can do all we're capable, because that's perfection, and none of us are perfect, but we can all make the effort to do that, and that's exactly what we should. But after a while, it didn't seem to me that this idea was having much of an impact on either myself or those under my supervision. And I tried to analyze the situation to determine why, and eventually I came to the conclusion that it's because this is something abject, a definition. You can't see it. And I think things you see tend to make a better impression, become a little more meaningful than things about which you only hear. So I wanted to come up with something that you could see. And then I recalled something that years before I had seen and had forgotten, but somewhere in the hidden recesses of the mind, I guess it popped out. Someone had taken a ladder with 5 rungs in the ladder and had named each rung of the ladder some particular trait or characteristic that this individual felt was necessary to get to the top of the ladder, where we'd all like to get, even though we might disagree on what we consider the top of the ladder to be. But to give me an idea, and at that particular time, I started working on something that I chose to call a pyramid to success. I worked on it for the next 14 years and eventually completed it when I was teaching at Indiana State University just prior to going to UCLA. But in the very beginning, I had no idea how many blocks would be in this structure. All I knew was at the apex, at the very top, was going to be success according to my definition. Now, how to get there? This was the point. I placed, at the very beginning, 2 blocks as the cornerstones of this structure without having any idea about how many blocks I'm going to use. I never changed my mind about. I had a lot of ideas. I discarded some. I kept some, but perhaps changed their position within the structure, but never the cornerstones. One cornerstone for success, in my opinion, is industriousness, and the other is enthusiasm. You have a little enthusiasm with this group. I've been with it several times before in different groups, and yes, you have enthusiasm. Industriousness. There is no substitute for work. There is no shortcut. There is no easy way. You may use a trick and get by a while, but you will not be developing the talents that lie within you if that's what you're looking for all the time. Grandland Rice, I consider to be the greatest sports writer of all time. He was probably wrote before any of you were born, but I remember him very well. He wrote many things in verse to illustrate points. And he wrote something called How to Be a Champion, and said, in part, you wonder how they do it, and you look to see the knack. You watch the foot in action, or the shoulder, or the back, but when you spot the answer where the higher glamours lurk, you'll find in moving higher up the laurel-covered spire that the most of it is practice, and the rest of it is work. I believe that's true. There is no substitute for industriousness. The other cornerstone.
Again, that was John Wooden. You can listen to the entire message on the YouTube titled Wooden's Wisdom, John Wooden Pyramid of Success at Tampa Bay, 1998, all poetry included. Let's keep the conversation going by emailing me at katrina@katrinajohnson.online. That's katrina@katrinajohnson.online. So grateful that you joined me on this episode. Remember, information plus inspiration equals transformation. And until next time, stay inspired.